Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. I didn't nearly forget the intro. You nearly forgot the intro. Shut up.
Oh, I didn't even really notice.
Great.
I was just more admiring. I love the glazed look on Adam's face right now. You look like you've already checked out.
It's just been a week, man. Like we said last week was a year. This week has been 2 years.
This week has been a decade.
And I, like normally, you know, like something crazy happens in the world and we get really excited and we talk about it with enthusiasm. But
excited?
Last week left me just exhausted.
Spent.
Because it was that crazy. Yeah. And then this week was like double that. And now we have to do the same thing again. And I don't know how to convey that to the listener.
Every week of the Trump
having a
presidency is crazy squared. So it's like an exponential, it's a logarithmic scale. It's a hockey stick up and to the right. Yeah, much like COVID infections during Trump's first term, exponential. In terms of the growth. Yeah. So strap in, boys. It's going to be a long, just under 4 years. We'll be all into our 40s by the time this is over. So, not me.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately.
No, neither will I.
Emotionally.
I'll be close to my 40. I'll basically by the time this is over, I'll be saying I'm basically 40. A lot of people ask me how old I am. So if you haven't figured it out by now, we're a news and politics podcast. And the big story this
Why
week,
couldn't we have been a music podcast or a movie podcast? There's still time. We don't have to do this. No one is making us. Just a hard pivot
How
to
good's
movie
Paddington
reviews.
2?
I finally watched Paddington 2 on the weekend, and it's bloody awesome. I'd love to talk about that.
Bloody Conclave. How good was Conclave? Get it in you.
Such a good film.
Conclave was excellent.
I'm here for Stanley Tucci in a robe. Let's get it.
Yep. Yeah. It's brilliant. But no, instead, we have to talk about ethnic cleansing. So
on that note, it was this week and not several years ago when Donald Trump said that he was going to ethnic cleanse the Gaza Strip. Now, Tom, I know you said surely that was weeks ago. No, in fact, it was 4 days ago that happened. So here's the clip of Donald Trump. So the thing I love, I've started the clip like maybe a minute early before he starts getting into the we're going to take over the Gaza Strip stuff. And I want you to watch Benjamin Netanyahu because it is clear that he has no fucking clue what's about to come out of Trump's mouth because he keeps doing this thing where he's like looking around going, what's he going to say? And he keeps talking about how Gaza's been like so utterly destroyed. And he's kind of looking around like, what's he doing? Shut the fuck up, Donald.
Yeah, Donald, we don't acknowledge that.
Who blew it up? Not me. No idea. Anyway, so here's a couple of minutes of Trump saying a bunch of bullshit and then talking about an ethnic cleansing, just to really, the lemon sorbet to really cleanse the palate before we get into the other horrible stuff that his administration did this week. So here we go. Deep breaths.
It's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky place for a long time. Being in its presence just has not been good, and it should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there. Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this, and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza, ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck. This can be paid for by neighboring countries of great wealth. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12. It could be numerous sites, or it could be one large site. But the people will be able to live in comfort and peace, and we'll make sure something really spectacular is done. They're going to have peace. They're not going to be shot at and killed and destroyed like this civilization of wonderful people has had to endure. The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years. I'm hopeful that this ceasefire could be the beginning of a larger and more enduring peace that will end the bloodshed and killing once and for all. With the same goal in mind, my administration has been moving quickly to restore trust in the alliance and rebuild American strength throughout the region. And we've really done that. We're a respected nation again. A lot's happened in the last couple of weeks. We are actually a very respected nation again. I ended the last administration's de facto arms embargo on over $1 billion in military assistance for Israel. And I'm also pleased to announce that this afternoon, the United States withdrew from the anti-Semitic UN Human Rights Council and ended all of the support for the UN Relief and Works Agency, which funneled money to Hamas and which was very disloyal to humanity. Today, I also took action to restore a maximum pressure policy on the Iranian regime, and we will once again enforce the most aggressive possible sanctions, drive Iranian oil exports to...
Anyway, so it goes on for another 31 minutes. It's just that, and then there's a bit where they call it. It's going to be the Riviera of the Middle East, and then Netanyahu goes and gives him a big sloppy blowjob there on stage, going, "Did I fucking say this guy was the greatest or what?" Like it's so fucking.
Does Netanyahu say anything throughout this whole?
Yeah, he
exchange?
does. Like he just basically he just says that, like, "You're the fucking greatest." Like that's like
It was
so bizarre. They're just saying the quiet part out loud, which is we are going to ethnically cleanse Gaza and then turn it into a real estate development and then sell it off.
Yeah,
basically.
I know we don't. I know it's like stupid that we have to. When you say ethnically cleanse, what do you mean by that?
Move all of the people of that ethnicity out of that place and put them in other places and then redevelop the land and say, you noticed he says, you can't go back there because if you go back there, everything's just going to start up again. So when he talks about the people of the region, the broader region living there, he's talking about making it like Dubai or something, where it's like this constructed city and it's like a development and it's like the world community lives there. You know, the wealthy elites go there as a tax haven or something like that. He doesn't want Palestinians living there, to be clear, because like if they go back, then the whole thing just kind of starts over again. So he's talking about ethnic cleansing there and saying that we are going to occupy it and we are going to clear all the landmines and the unexploded ordnance. So it's just like, American ordnance dropped by who? No one knows. And Netanyahu's standing there looking, it's really fucked up what's happening there. Is all the buildings are raised. I wonder who did that. Like,
watching Netanyahu through that,
it's a real roller coaster emotionally for him because he has no idea where it's going.
Well, for most of that, he's kind of like he's looking at him and he sort of like looks around, nods a bit, being like, wow, I'm just now hearing this. But there was a moment at the start where I think he was looking at like one of his people. Like,
what the fuck is he doing, Tom?
Just kind of like looked over and I saw like a specific person. It looked like his eyes just locked with something, being like, what is happening? Did you know about this? I didn't know about this.
Yeah.
What do you mean the US is taking over the Gaza Strip?
But he's thrilled, obviously, because that's kind of more or less what they've wanted the entire time. They're saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah,
right?
what? To get rid of the entire Palestinian populace in the Gaza Strip and then have it?
And then they'll go to
they've been wanting the
other
entire time.
surrounding Arabic nations like Egypt and Jordan, and like they'll just be just have their entire culture taken away and be moved off the land. Like, anyway, so they've walked a lot of this back because, like, how would you do this except via American boots on
invasion.
the ground. Yeah, and a literal invasion, occupation, and annexation of the territory. Like that's like, how could you do that without a war? And the guy who's meant to be like America first probably shouldn't be putting American troops on the ground in the Middle East forever wars over territory. Like America historically is like 0 for 2 over the last 25 years for that. So I just don't think it's a very good idea. And believe it or not, I don't think he's thought this through.
You mean the speech that he read like a 4-year-old that obviously he hadn't practiced, that he then tried to improv off halfway through? You mean that was cobbled together, he hadn't actually thought through?
He doesn't enjoy the job of being president. I just think he enjoys not being in jail. I think that's the main focus of doing this.
He spoke for another 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Like, for a man who's so awful at talking, how does he talk for that long? It's just crazy to hear them say the quiet part out loud. And it just makes me think, like, I know it's more nuanced than this, but it's like, oh, gee, how do all those protest voters feel? Like I'm not saying the Democrats were doing anything good, but when you're like, no, we can't vote for them, so I'm either going to not vote or vote against them over this single issue. How you feeling now?
There was a clip on TikTok that was...
They're helping now. Like, they're helping them ethnically cleanse Gaza. More than just supplying the weapons, they're actually going to help.
Yeah, you thought Genocide Joe was not good for the Palestinian people. Wait till you get old mate New York City property developer in there and start turning it into fucking Vegas on the sea. Vegas on the... Yeah, like, I just...
It's insane.
It's bad.
That was an actual fever dream of like an announcement, and it's obviously they've walked it back, as you said. Various officials have come back and said,
because what it amounts to is a declaration of war. You know what I mean? Like, of course they have to walk it back because it's fucking nuts what he just said. Like,
we are going to do a country erasure.
Yeah,
pretty much. The entire Middle East, by the way, as well, was like, fucking no, we're not gonna just... Because then they were also like, one thing he also said was like, oh, we're gonna set up another sort of domain or enclave, whatever the word was, somewhere else. And I'm like, you're just doing the same thing.
This is how we got here in the first place.
This is what started this thing.
Well, he clearly doesn't know the history because he says, it's going to be like it has been for the past 100 years. Israel is not 100 years old.
And describing it as bad luck. Describing
really
the whole
very unlucky, extremely unlucky people.
It's so unlucky to be standing there in the path of our munitions.
It's extremely unlucky when the British started drawing lines. Extremely unlucky when they had their land stolen. Almost the most unluckiest people you could ever. We can't dwell too long on this because of the other crimes that have been committed this week. But like, I just wanted to say, ethnic cleansing. Or proposed ethnic cleansing. Whilst it is the A block, it's not the only story of the week. Surely you would think that's a 5-alarm fire. The president of the United States threatened to wipe out a culture. But that's just one of 12 to 13 major 5-alarm fires that happened this week because we are operating, as Steve Bannon said, at muzzle velocity. It's just bang, 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 go, 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 flooding the zone with shit. So we can't keep up. So what we need to then do on our podcast is like rage yell. And we can't possibly keep up with any of the many major things that are happening. And therefore we just miss a bunch of things. And then those things get permanently balked. This is the strategy. This is the plan.
Yeah, and it's tricky because like while we could, as we've sort of been saying, like Trump just waffled on about that, just like casually, almost on the spot, suggested an ethnic cleansing and relocating people to random numbers of locations, or even a single location. That was so strange. That could be 4, 6 places, 12 places, or even one really big place. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But then people are walking it back, and it could have been just a stream of consciousness, and it's like, that's not actually what's going to happen.
What's he reading off? Who prepared this for this document?
Yeah, who prepared this for him? Like, it could just be his stream of consciousness and just like
he just
an
looked
idea
down.
that
It's
he
just like a
hasn't
doodle.
thought
It says
through.
nothing on the paper.
That he has not thought through, and it has no plans to actually do. And so then we might just be contributing to the problem by yelling about this problem while not talking about something else. But the problem is, how do you fucking know what the crazy thing that actually matters is? Because all the fire hose of shit are all things that when you hear them individually matter.
So there was this piece that came out from Ezra Klein over at the New York Times this week, which I was tempted to put in the rundown, but I might just link it in the show notes, which was entitled "Don't Believe Him," right? And basically the thrust of the argument is, I think people kind of misinterpreted the title a little bit, and they're like, of course we should believe him. He says a bunch of crazy shit, and sometimes you got to believe the things that he says. It's not really about that. What he's saying in the opinion piece is like, he has to, the only way that he can take power, because of the limitations on presidential power, even though, you know, he's got an expanded idea of what presidential power is because of the unitary executive theory and like a pliant Supreme Court and all these sort of things. Even with all of that said, he still has to, like, there are still things that limit presidential power, just practically in terms of the courts and things like that. He can't become a king unless we the American people at large, acquiesce to him, right? So if you just take things lying down and like pre-capitulate, then yeah, it's all over. He becomes a king. He becomes a king because we all treat him like a king. But if you resist, if you like don't believe him when he says he can just do a thing, you know, if you believe in the rule of law, if we all en masse believe that the emperor does in fact have no clothes on, then he's not going to be able to operationalize a lot of the things that he's going to want to try and do.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I think it makes sense to a certain extent. I think the problem that we have is when you do have a situation where he does a bunch of deeply unconstitutional shit, and then either the Supreme Court is either unwilling or unable to restrain him, and then you have an actual constitutional crisis. At that point, I think you can call it a coup, because, you know, like, either they might see that he's going to do something anyway and just rule in his favor in order to like avoid the headache and, you know, whatever, which you could absolutely see this like conservative supermajority Supreme Court doing, or they issue an order and he just ignores it. He goes, okay, you and what fucking army? At which point, either way, like bad things are going to happen.
Yeah, especially with the precedents being established that they just don't hold presidents accountable to the law. Like, yeah, they take the Nixon thing as policy rather than abhorrent.
Anyway, so I'll link that piece in the show notes because I think it's interesting. But yeah, it's really blew up the internet this week. Okay, so speaking of blowing things up, Elon Musk and Trump have been, with Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency, so-called, not an actual department, although it's being treated like an actual department by all the other departments that it comes into contact with. They are seemingly have been prescribing to this idea of move fast and break things. So this was a term that was popularized, I think it was by Mark Zuckerberg in 2012 in a memo. It's a term in tech, but it was popularized by Zuckerberg, which essentially described their approach to iterating quickly. You know, when in software development, you know, one of the popular methodologies for developing software is called the agile methodology. And basically there's a lot of specific rules about how and the Scrum Masters, and there's like different iterations of how it all
when
works.
I first heard the term Scrum Master, I was like, oh wow, like,
I'm
you know,
the Scrum Master.
We love throwing words into job titles, like
100%.
you're an officer or like a lieutenant or whatever, like, but you aren't in the military in any way, shape, or form. You're just like, you know, you work in a shop.
Yeah,
you're a customer success lieutenant.
You're you're a programmer. You go on the keyboard. Yeah. That's what you do.
Yeah.
So essentially, what agile is as a methodology is that typically programmers will run in like 2 to 3 week sprints, and they've got this backlog of items that keeps getting fed through. Here are these things we need to fix or change or update about the product. And so there's always a bunch of things that are being queued up and prioritized and put into the next sprint. So the idea is, you generally have a daily stand-up at the start of every day, and you'll meet and discuss what everyone's working on and how to align to make sure everyone's working on the same stuff. So that's the broad general outline. There's different ways of doing agile, but that's the general idea, right? And the whole idea is that you do things quickly, and that you're working together as a team to like move fast and get stuff through.
Yeah.
So that's the move fast part of it.
Realize what doesn't work, so as that then you can respond to it quickly and now, rather than spending forever building up a software project and then releasing it to the public and having everything break because you didn't catch those breaks along the way. Yeah.
And like the so you might go, okay, well that makes sense. How'd you project manage stuff prior to that methodology? And it was called waterfall. So that's basically like, think about building a skyscraper. You build the foundations, you build the middle, you build the top, then you do the electricity. So it's this, then this, then this, then this, then this. And
you've planned it all.
And you planned it all in advance. But of course that doesn't,
planning stage.
The more complicated a project gets, the less likely you are to actually able to deal with all of those complexities right at the start of the planning process. You'll get to the end of the skyscraper and realize you haven't got any fucking toilets or whatever, right? So, to use an analogy. So that's where Agile comes in. It helps you build and iterate, move fast and break things so you can then fix them and then, come out with what they call a minimum viable product, MVP. And that's what gets pushed out to the public. Now, in the case of like building an app, which allows you to like make waifu versions of, your friends, like minimum viable product, if it breaks or doesn't break, that's of no consequence whatsoever, right? Because most of the internet economy is just dross that serves no one. But when it comes
you move fast and break things internally.
Yes,
like
you don't break
the
world.
Public yet. You break the waifu app in development.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not breaking it for all the perverts who are using it.
Yes, and the idea is that, but it's very like tech mentality, right? Like you break things and then you can fix them. The problem with federal government is that because it is a very serious endeavor, you can't just like move fast and break things in order to get to the desired end state. You need to like be careful because there's millions of people's lives at stake and trillions of dollars at stake. Like you can't just like, as you say, Tom, with a private company, you can move fast, break things. It's 100 people's lives that you're playing with. Like at the end of the day, if the company goes bankrupt, like nothing bad really happens except to the people who worked in that company, right? Like this is trying to take that mentality and it's a methodology that we've seen from Elon Musk in the past in the companies that he's taken over, like Tesla. No, he wasn't actually a founder at Tesla. I don't care what Wikipedia says. He bought his way in and then kicked the founders out and made himself CEO. But this whole idea of like sleeping on the floor, and he did the same thing at Twitter when he bought Twitter. He moved into the offices and ripped out a bunch of furniture and fired a bunch of people. We talked about it on the show. We reported it as it was happening, talking about the different things he was doing to rip out the infrastructure and focus on. And the language that he uses is talking about basically trying to find a minimum viable product in terms of the number of employees that the federal government has, and just basically try and figure a way to run it on the minimum number of employees. Now that's fine if it's Twitter and the service goes down temporarily and people go, oh, I'm annoyed. How am I going to rage tweet at David Spears on Insiders if Twitter's down? Like nothing really happens if that happens. But if it's like, the Federal Aviation Authority, then planes crash and people die. So sorry, second.
It's the Treasury or social services or any of these sorts of things. Like you can't fuck with production. You can't test in production when it comes to social services.
When it comes to the largest government in the world, no.
Yeah.
Sorry, Adam, you say that there's a variety of databases that the Center of Disease Control runs for various medical professionals, hospitals in the US. So, but they've taken down a bunch of stuff relating to like STDs, treatment.
Yeah, Dan Savage was talking about it this week where he goes, I wanted to get some information. So he runs a sex advice column and he wanted to get some information about PrEP, which is like an HIV preventative medication. So say your partner has HIV, but you don't, you can take PrEP and then that way you can have the idea, I guess, is to have unprotected sex with your long-term partner, knowing that they don't have any other STDs, and you won't contract HIV, right?
Yeah.
Information about that is just gone on the government website.
Yeah.
There's like no studies, information, all that sort of stuff just doesn't exist anymore.
I mean, it was an Instagram video, but what this nurse was saying is that someone had downloaded the information prior, and so they're passing it around like it's some sort
like
of
it's blue jeans in Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
Like it's a fucking jazz record, a secret jazz record in 1960s USSR.
So apparently I don't know whether that's related to the diversity and inclusion stuff or whether this is part of the DOGE, fucking Spanish Inquisition that's happening at the moment.
So much of no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. So much of the DOGE stuff is obviously nonsense. Like they shut down all grants. And then they said, some grants are back up, but only like super important ones.
And who decides which are the super important ones?
Yeah, exactly. But some of the grants, like one of the grants that they shut down was to fund the cops that defend nuclear facilities. So it's like
oh, great.
the nuke cops, obviously not integral, not important. But you know what I mean? Like it's just so haphazard and scattershot that you can't even just like keep up with half the shit that's coming out. They offered a buyout to like all federal employees, saying like, we'll keep paying you until September if you just like fucking quit now, you fucking pieces of shit. And they aim to get rid of like 5 to 10% of the federal workforce. And then they stop. They're like, the air traffic controllers though. No, not you guys. We need you.
Yeah. You can't just be,
with all the plane crashes happening inexplicably.
Yeah, the comparison of it being like an agile software development is so apt. Like I work in like agile sort of style software development, and you can't just be dicking around with these things and seeing what breaks and then roll back that deployment. Like you can't like when it comes to running a fucking country.
Yeah.
It's madness. And I mean, it's barely worked at his companies. It's not going to work here at the government.
So besides the fact that some of the stuff is unconstitutional, like being able to tell people, that they would be paid till September is like...
Yeah, and that's illegal. And obviously they've provisioned no money from Congress to actually do such a thing. Like it's like...
Elon can afford it. He won't pay it, but he could.
But it's illegal and not possible. And obviously like, and what they're telling like unions and stuff, like telling their members like, don't actually do this because once you resign, their obligations to you end the minute you don't work here anymore. And they could just go, thanks for playing. Actually, we're not going to pay you till September. Go fuck yourself. Like,
they can
obviously
say
don't do that.
They want. They can say shit.
And what's extremely concerning is that Musk basically, even though he doesn't hold, this is the reason that the Senate has for official appointments of departments. The Senate has an advice and consent role. You go through security clearances, you have
and the confirmation stuff.
Confirmation process, you have all this scrutiny. The reason that happens is because, if you've got someone with immense power making big government decisions, they haven't been elected and they're just some random guy, to whom are they fucking accountable? The answer is no one. So it was revealed Monday that Musk has been appointed as a special government employee who can serve for up to 130 days in a 365-day period. So he's neither a volunteer nor a full-time government employee, but even though he hasn't gone through any kind of FBI check, he does have a top secret security clearance, which needless to say, is a massive conflict of interest because of all the billions of dollars he receives from the government in subsidies via, SpaceX and Tesla and all these sorts of organizations. But like the fact that no one's looked into those, the fact that like he's had as talked about having secret conversations with Vladimir Putin and like other strategic not allies of the United States and now has access to the literal treasury payment system and they're accessing it. Him and his Elon's creche filled with 19-year-old children have access to the treasury payment system, which has access to, in case you're wondering, fucking everything. It's got names, addresses, social security, like bank details, and they're being accused, him and this group of children are being accused of setting up backdoors and setting up access and ways of getting in there which are completely unsecured. So a security specialist who is quoted in the article basically says like this, no one knows what the fuck is going on there. Like, foreign actors would be having a fucking field day with all of this unsecured access happening on this like incredibly tightly held information, including like identities of CIA agents and all sorts of other information, because if you control the payments, you can control everything, right? So, and the idea is going to use this payment system to like fire a bunch of people or just constrain payments to them. So it's like, okay, well, if you don't leave, I'm just going to stop paying you, sort of thing. Like, it's
oh my god,
Trump had said,
doing an office space.
Yeah,
Trump had said initially that they'd only had read-only access.
Yeah, that's false. That's been confirmed by multiple different sources. That's fucking horseshit. Can you believe Adam? Can you believe he lied?
What?
What?
Donald Trump lied?
Hang on, was it Trump that he said it? He probably didn't even lie. He probably just didn't know.
Didn't know. Yeah.
He doesn't know. He doesn't care, probably.
Well, they're literally like him and his goons. Musk and
his goons
are just like storming up to government agencies, kicking people out, like firing people. Like USAID is basically shuttered at the moment. They've got 10,000 officials at the agency, and they were told not to come into work. They need to work from home. And also your emails and everything have been switched off, so you can't work from home. So it's like they've effectively shut down USAID, which is also causing problems domestically because a lot of the programs that USAID runs, like, okay, you go, okay, well, they're giving food to people in Ghana or whatever. How does that benefit the USA? That's fucking bullshit, fucking DEI, fucking, bullshit spending overseas. Foreign aid, by the way, makes up like a fraction of 1% of the entire US budget. So it's not really a place where you're going to make a lot of savings. But the food that goes to those people
is produced
by Americans. It's basically a subsidy for American farmers that the United States is going to buy this food in. Yes, we're going to send it overseas as a gesture of goodwill, but it's basically just a subsidy program to farm. Like farmers and all the like institutions, the places that do the logistics for this food is like, well, we've got food in transit. Like, what do we do with all this food if we can't give it to the people that we're supposed to be giving to? So it's just going to sit there and spoil. Like, it's just so broken and dumb and like self-defeating.
And it's killing people.
Yeah, people are dying because of this.
Like, yeah, I saw, I think the ABC reported on this, that like a hospital in Myanmar just had to shut down because USAID is gone.
Yeah.
And so patients just were sent home. And they were reporting that some of those people just died.
Yeah.
They just died because they were in a hospital.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, Elon Musk is killing people.
Yep. Then there's the tariffs. Oh, sorry, go on, Adam. Did you want us to contribute to this fucking maelstrom or...
No, keep going.
Yeah. So there was also the tariffs and argue about the tariffs. So basically Trump said over the weekend that he was going to declare a national economic emergency and threaten tariffs on Mexico and Canada, saying all goods would be tariffed at 25%, and China is going to get a 10% tariff. He then said, I had a chat to Mexico and they're going to send some extra troops to the border. It's all good. Meanwhile, Mexico had already committed to sending troops to the border. Like, he didn't get anything out of Mexico or Canada in terms of the concession. He's like, yeah, we threatened him with tariffs and then we got what we wanted. And then the people who actually know their portfolios were like, we just promised him stuff that we were already going to do. It's like, don't tell him. But like, he didn't actually get anything.
Yeah.
I think the one major concession was that Canada said that it was going to acknowledge that the cartels were terrorist organizations, and I guess that's going to mobilize some kind of like...
You mean Mexico?
No, Canada. I know. No one knows why.
Hang on. Wait. So Canada have agreed to acknowledge that Mexican cartels are terrorists?
Canada, I need to keep my voice down. My son is sleeping. Because Canada...
What?
Apparently there's some problem. There was like 80 tons of fentanyl that came through the Canadian border. And they're like, oh my God, that's crazy. Meanwhile, like 8,000 tons of fentanyl came through from the Mexican border, and 80% of which was trafficked by US citizens. So I don't know how this is going to really help any of that, but...
What?
All I can imagine is, because they've now declared Mexican drug cartels terrorists, it effectively sets up Sicario as a
The movie.
Sicario
The film,
2 actually. Yeah, as a real thing where the president now legally could send special forces troops to Mexico to start killing cartel members.
Yeah, like people like JD Vance have long been advocating for, which don't get me wrong, sounds like a dope fucking film, but it is not something I want to see happen in reality.
No.
But hang on, seriously, Canada have now just had to acknowledge that Mexican cartels are terrorists. Are Canadians so nice that they were like, nah, they're probably just real nice guys. So, all right, there's a concession we'll make. We'll say something bad about Mexican cartels.
Do you want us to say sorry to the cartels?
Like, oh my God. Yeah, see, in the fire hose of shit, I missed that gem. That's great.
And there was also the water thing in California where he just like, he says he opened California's water. So the U.S. Army
like he turned on a tap?
Basically. So there these reserves that store, like dams, that store all of this water. And he basically instructed the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to release the dams to full capacity. Citing the Los Angeles fires, but like it's not clear that water would go to Los Angeles in any meaningful way. And it turns out
very far upstream.
Californians had to like basically people in the state government had to be like, you can't open it up to full because you're going to like flood towns, and please don't. And so they ended up releasing it, but not releasing it all the way. Trump described how he went about releasing the order. Quote, "We did it in a very rough way, and I didn't like to do it a rough way," he said, chuckling.
Don't add things like chuckling. Don't humanize this prick.
No, I think the chuckling does the opposite there.
Well, no, that's what sorry. I mean, like, don't give me like, I don't like to know that he has thoughts like that.
So I don't know. He's trying to say like I helped with the fires, but it's got nothing to do with the fires. It's just like shoot first,
I think he made
aim.
a sex joke what he actually did.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I mean. Like that. That's what I mean. Don't give us that inner workings into his brain that he can make sex jokes, because he's a monster and a rapist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so just back on the federal treasury stuff. So one of the Elon Musk is like this cadre of like 19 to 25-year-olds following him around.
Let's talk about his cronies. One
of whom was fired this week, and we don't know which one or what their name is or anything like that because of a bunch of racist stuff that they tweeted online saying like, you know, send the Indians back to India, and I was racist before it was cool, and you know, like normalize Indian hate. These are the sort of things that this guy was posting online, just like eugenicist, like clearly racist stuff. So that guy's gone, thankfully. So we're just left with all the other racist idiots. Yeah, we sorted, fixed it. Don't worry.
I mean, that's crazy. He sounds like your average Twitter user that Musk likes.
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
well,
that's incredibly on brand for
sure that's
19-year-olds in Musk's inner circle.
So the Washington Post this week had a report that there was an outburst by one of these small children who, as part of this so-called Department of Government Efficiency, that were basically one of these kids threw a tantrum, an explosive screaming tantrum, calling senior office personnel, management, developers idiots, screaming, crying. Now, we don't know if this was Big Balls, which is the moniker of one of the children that is serving Musk. That is a real thing. Big Balls 2025. That's a real thing that's happening. One of the guys that has control of the treasury,
like a nickname,
might be Big Ball. That's his moniker. That's what he goes by.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a family name or if it's a. Yeah.
I was thinking, according to Wired, they describe him as a young technologist known online as Big Balls.
Yeah.
So
not.
We don't know if that's the one that had the hissy. We don't know if that's the one that had the hissy fit. It could have been a different large testicled gentleman.
Yeah. Mm. Well, someone with such large balls would surely never have a tantrum.
No.
I mean, that those two things just don't compute. Those two massive hairy things do not compute.
Yeah. And yeah, basically just so this is quoting from a government employee. It's highly likely that they're improperly accessing, transferring, and storing highly sensitive data outside of the environments it was intended to be contained within, said a British cybersecurity expert. If I were a nation like China, Russia, or Iran, I'd be having a field day with a bunch of college kids running around with sensitive federal government data on unencrypted hard drives. So, they're in the Treasury, and who knows what the fuck they're doing. Trump said they're not going to do anything without our permission, but like, how the fuck would he know?
I mean, the other thing is like, if you're simply trying to work out who is dispensable and who isn't, you're not going to necessarily just get that from looking through financial information. You'll get some of it, but like, even if let's say they do everything, let's say best case scenario, they don't break anything, they just take the information, report it back to the White House.
And don't accidentally create any backdoors that the Chinese government can just walk through. Yeah.
Yeah. Best case scenario.
The extremely best case scenario. The platonic ideal of the best possible way this could go.
Trump will get that information and they'll make a bunch of decisions that'll still be fucking cooked.
Yeah.
Because they won't have the full story. The US government is incredibly complex.
Yeah.
Is there waste? Probably.
Almost certainly.
But like, you're talking about like, it's not just one business. It's like, Twitter is one thing, right? Twitter is like, it's a fucking micro.
Selling waifu porn ads to cryptocurrency bros. That's the business.
Yeah, Twitter does one thing.
The US, if you think about the services, the business, the outputs the US government has, they are so many, you probably couldn't even count them.
Yeah.
Like, so just somehow distill it into like, we're going to fire, to a number of like, this is how many people we can fire. It's fucking crazy. And that's why they've been talking about this is all in Project 2025. They've been talking about this.
Yeah, they told us. They told us what they were going to do, and now they're doing it. You can literally, there was a song I saw where the lyrics were pointing to specific passages of the Project 2025 and saying, oh, this thing that happened, that's from page 147. And it was like to the theme of, I'm just a bill up on Capitol Hill. It was like to that.
Ah, nice.
That was at page 142 is a nuclear spill. Like, it's like literally just like pointing out the roadmap that they laid out for the guy who they're trying to confirm to the head of whatever it is, the Office of Management and Budget, is the guy who was chiefly responsible for overseeing the Project 2025 plan, like the writing of
manual.
Yeah.
And like, the thing is with Project 2025 is that it's purely ideological.
Yeah.
There's
not a lot of hard thinking going on in that document.
No.
Yeah, not a lot of introspection and searching for the answers. It's a lot of like, trans people don't exist and also shouldn't.
Yeah. So anyway, it's best case scenario. It's still going to be horrible.
It's bad.
Everyone.
Hey, there's a way. I don't know if you guys know this. There is a cool way of figuring out what should and shouldn't be in the federal budget. And it's called the federal budget. And what you do is you can go and pass a piece of legislation that changes what the federal budget looks like. And then next year, you can make a whole bunch of changes. And which should be fairly easy to do as the Republican Party, considering you own all the levers of power in the American government, being the House of Congress, the Senate, the executive branch. Like, anyone who knew what they were doing in this scenario would actually be able to make pretty radical, completely legal changes. But the Trump administration is so focused on muzzle velocity, just bang, 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 just doing things as fast as humanly fucking possible in order to freak everyone the fuck out and chill dissent, that they're doing things that they could do legally in ways that are obviously illegal, like to just do them faster. Like, it's not...
And some of them are for show, like he just signs executive orders here or there.
Oh, we're not going to have men in women's sport, like a trans athlete bill for... I was like, none of that is the responsibility of the federal government. It's just like saying, we're not going to have unicorns. Like, that's not your business. You can't control that. That's not a thing that you have power over or something you can do.
The other thing this week, just keep things moving along. Donald Trump has claimed that South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly.
Now, which South African billionaire friend, no points for guessing, did he get that information on? did he get that information from?
I
mean, he's got actually. Now that I think about it, he's actually got several South African billionaires in his inner circle. So, it was probably Elon Musk. That's what we're saying. But like, it could have been also, what was his name? Sachs or Peter Thiel. So he's actually got a few. But yeah.
But anyway, so there's a whole thing in South Africa at the moment where there's the current government is talking about potentially, redoing some of the way that land is acquired by the government and the compensation that might be given to the former owners and under certain conditions. And it's pretty complicated, but it's all part of sort of trying to redress some of the systemic issues in South Africa since the end of apartheid and trying to sort of find a way to redress that.
So it's about land acquisition So it's about saying, they're creating new powers for themselves. Let's say, like eminent domain, which exists in the United States, or I forget what the term is here, but it's like the government can take land and repurpose it for, when it's required for certain purposes, right?
Yeah.
Which is powers that basically every federal government has over their land. Like in Australia, you need to have like just compensation for the land that gets taken. In this, they're saying under certain circumstances, there doesn't need to be any compensation, but it needs to be with prior agreement. So it's like, but basically what white billionaires from South Africa here is like, the pogroms are coming. They're coming for the white billionaires. Like
they're looking at what happened in Zimbabwe and they're freaking out. But anyway, like the fact is Trump has said, we're going to stop funding South Africa, but like they don't really.
The only thing they fund in South Africa is helping to support the anti-HIV program. So
it's like 17%.
17% of the budget of that program is funded by the United States. But the thing is, like, it's like you don't want, there's things like, there's I forget the name of the disease, but there's in West Africa, there's
Ebola.
No, yeah, it's like Ebola, but it's not. It's something different. But it's basically described as super Ebola. That's what I heard. And that program to treat that and contain that, like that is useful, not just to the people of West Africa, because if it breaks containment and comes to the United States, super Ebola would be not so good for the United States. So it's like these aren't just things that like directly benefit you. Like they are things, I guess, that indirectly benefit the United States because that makes the world a less dangerous place to be, which ultimately benefits the United States, right? So it just doesn't make any sense as to why. I know this is just going to be the refrain for the next 4 years, as it's just going to be me going, it doesn't make any sense though.
It doesn't have to make sense, George, because Trump is going to create a religious office in the White House targeting anti-Christian bias. So obviously this one's I was surprised it wasn't announced earlier, to be honest.
You would have thought topic number one, let's hear Donald Trump saying some words about the impending theocracy.
Today I'm signing an executive order to make our Attorney General, who's a great person, she's going to be a great Attorney General, Pam Bondi, the head of a task force, brand new, to eradicate anti-Christian bias. About time, right? Anti-Christian bias. The mission of this task force will be to immediately halt all forms of anti-Christian targeting and discrimination within the federal government. In addition, the task force will work to fully prosecute anti-Christian violence and vandalism in our society and to move heaven and earth to defend the rights of Christians and religious believers nationwide.
In case you're wondering, has there been a spate of anti-Christian violence across the United States? No, there hasn't. So
no. And
That's
of course,
that's nothing.
famed Christian Donald Trump just standing up for Christians.
Deeply religious man.
Oh, he's had an epiphany since he almost got killed. He's
really?
seen the light. Yeah, I mean, God wants him here because he survived. God wants it. It's obviously God's will, Tom. Didn't you know?
Right. Did God also tell him how to hold a Bible? Because he didn't. One, he
down.
held it upside down that time, and two, he didn't touch it when he was inaugurated. So he's not great with his Bible etiquette.
In all fairness, he assumed that he would burst into flames if they actually made contact with the Bible. So
we all hoped.
You'll notice that thankfully, like some people are starting to get finally radicalized by everything that's been going on and start to push back on this in a new way. Basically, people like Senator Brian Schatz have been have basically been saying that basically we are going to do everything we can from this point on to grind the Senate to a halt. No going along with any of these nominees just for the sake of them. Now the fact is they've got 47 votes when, Trump needs 51 to pass anything. So if Trump wants to pass all these nominees and he can get all of his 50 or even most of his 53 senators to go along with it, they'll all get passed. But they can throw sand in the gears. And that's what they've been doing. Democrats have been holding, sort of filibustering, holding the Senate floor, passing a bunch of procedural motions to slow things down, grind things to a halt. Don't just go along with it. This is exactly what I've been calling for last week was you need to get off the bench and start throwing your body into the gears of the system and start grinding things to a halt. Because take the Mitch McConnell playbook, right? This is exactly what they did after Obama's first term, as they said, we're just going to grind everything to a halt. We become the party of no and slowing things down. And that's what Democrats need to do in order to stop what is currently happening, right? You're not going to stop it. All you can do is slow it down and frustrate it.
Minimize the damage.
Minimize the damage, exactly. And people have been coming out and protesting, going protesting in front of Treasury buildings, preventing Elon Musk and his goons access. They've actually prevented them from being able to go into some of these federal buildings and things like that, which is really interesting and sort of heartening to see.
Especially if they have no real
official jurisdiction
to walk in. That's interesting.
Yeah. So hopefully that's the start of something. Apparently, according to polling, Elon Musk as a figure is much more radicalizing to people on the left, a figure, than Trump is, because I think people are kind of inured to the nonsense of Trump. They're familiar with it, whereas everyone's we didn't fucking elect this guy. It's just
Trump is
unelected fucking billionaire.
Yeah. He is the thing that in theory a lot of people were voting against by voting for Trump.
They're being being the elites or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you don't get more elite than the world's richest man.
He's in terms of even Republican voters, only a minority of Republican voters support Elon Musk. So he's actually a pretty unpopular figure at the moment. So I think him being the catalyst for the spark, for a kind of populist uprising against him is actually more effective right now, at least it seems, than a popular uprising against Donald Trump, who, as you might remember, mere months ago actually won the popular vote somehow. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. It'd be cool if there was a country left in 4 years, but we'll see.
I mean,
it could be a country. It'll just be Gilead.
Yeah. Yeah, watch Handmaid's Tale if you haven't, because it's it'll help with the prediction markets at the very least. So
I'll say I can save myself the subscription fee to wherever it is. I can just watch the news.
Yeah, this is true. You're seeing it unfold now, but you can't binge. If you've got Handmaid's Tale, you can binge a whole season. So,
bro, my God, would you want to binge a Trump presidency? Yes,
meant that it was over quicker.
It'd be over in a week, but what a week!
Yeah.
I don't know if the human mind could handle it.
I don't know, man. It's been a week, just this last week.
Yeah.
And that was too much.
That was plenty.
So do you think your brain could handle 4 years worth of this in 1 week?
No, I'm going to go move to the woods and disconnect from reality. This is too much.
Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, I'm starting to think he made some good points. Not about the killing people. But living in the woods, starting to look really appealing right now.
Luigi gave him 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads.
Luigi Mangione.
Yeah. Well, allegedly, if that was his Goodreads account. Unabomber apparently made some great points.
Well, I mean, his was all about not
Technology
being,
will destroy us all.
technology
Yeah.
destroyers and not being part of the system.
Theories of
which-
control and which I mean,
Yeah.
all of that stuff is not untrue. I guess it
Yeah.
was his remedy of sending people bombs in the post, which was the problem.
Sending bombs to people was it kind of ruins the message, Ted.
Yeah. Silly Ted.
Speaking of technology coming to destroy us all, moving over to Australia. That's where we are.
What?
Also stuff is happening here. It's not just America all the time, but that new Chinese AI app that we talked about last week, DeepSeek. At least DeepSeek's the company. Is DeepSeek also the name of the app? Yeah, it is, because I heard they had their thing called their R1 model and
was
stuff.
the
Anyway,
latest model, yeah.
yeah. So, the ChatGPT like AI app developed by the Chinese company DeepSeek has been banned on all Australian government devices and systems because of, you guessed it, security risks. Because the app is Chinese. So I don't know, like, if they have evidence
Is
of
Temu
it.
banned as well? Because
Well,
I hate to break it to you,
Temu-
there's
I don't
lots of
think-
Chinese apps.
Yeah, I don't think Temu is. I know TikTok they did as well. They did like the symbol. So I don't know, but I don't know if they have any evidence that DeepSeek is leaking everything that they're getting to the Chinese government. But I mean,
it's open source, so if there was code in there that was
it.
malicious and able to pass things back through to the Chinese government, then we would know about. Immediately, someone would figure that out and find that out and tell everyone about it. The whole idea of open source models is that they are completely auditable, and you can take this model and run it offline on your computer. In a way that's completely air gapped from the internet, so it would have no way.
It can't pass
anything back.
internet information. You can't ask it about today's news, but it can interpret a document.
Right, exactly. And in a lot of ways, it's actually a lot more secure than ChatGPT, which we know for a fact does pass that information back and uses it to feed its models and all that sort of stuff. Whereas DeepSeek, you can have it set up.
If you're running it offline, it's not training itself.
Yeah.
At least not in a accessible way to others. It could be training yourself on your system. I don't know. I haven't looked at the code.
So look at this sentence. This is from BBC. The Australian government has insisted the ban is not due to the app's Chinese origins.
Oh, what is it?
But because
So
of
what
the
have you say, buddy?
unacceptable risk it poses to national security.
Are they allowed to have the ChatGPT app? Are they allowed to have the fucking Gemini app?
Yeah.
Are they allowed to have the Claude AI app? Are they allowed to
I was going to say,
any
because of
fucking
the
social media app?
unacceptable risk to national security. What is that risk?
Yeah.
And someone's
Does
like,
it
it's
does it
because it's
contain
from
the word
China.
Chinese origins in it? Is that the risk? Because you're right, George. There's all these other AI services that are on there. Every freaking phone these days are all now. They have their Gemini or whatever built into them. Yes, you can opt out of using them or turn off some settings, but is it fully turned off? All that sort of stuff. So what government devices don't have them?
Also, as we know
any AI
from
model.
the Shoshana Zuboff book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, anytime you're interacting with any of these apps, social media apps, any kind of app on your phone, you are surrendering behavioral surplus, otherwise known as shed loads of metadata. You are shedding, anytime you interact with any app or service, you're giving up geolocation data. You're giving up all the contacts in your phone. You're giving up. Now, I could understand the argument if you go, okay, well, it's a malicious state actor that wants to hurt us, and maybe that's bad for them to have that information. There are a myriad of ways for them to have access to that information anyway. Banning this one app of federal government devices is not going to do diddly fuck about that problem.
But it's AI and it's scary, George, and we just need to be cautious about it.
It's scary Chinese AI. It's scary.
It seems extremely reactionary.
I look, as someone who sort of works in the cyber field at the moment, from what I'm hearing, a lot of everything that's happening with AI, it's all very reactive from an organizational and a government perspective. Everyone's sort of
Nobody knows what they're doing. They're just trying to figure
Well,
it out.
yeah. Everyone's trying to seek advice, and they're not sure about how different bits of data can tie into each other, and how does what can the end user connect to? Like, no one's quite sure of what all the risks are yet with AI, generally speaking. So the technology is moving faster than the best practice, shall we say, to some extent. But whether or not it's an unacceptable risk, I don't know about that. I think you're more likely to get ransomware and phished. In terms of like higher risk thresholds for a company, like those are probably the big two, right? So business email compromise, those kind of things, that they tend to be the things that a lot of companies deal with. And I don't know I can't remember whether the government's legislation got passed, but whether or not half of that is disclosed,
like whenever it occurs.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, it's got some good news though this week, guys. And I don't know how this happened because we've been calling for Labor to do something, anything, like
Please,
phone a friend,
dear God,
50-50, like just take a lifeline.
Yeah.
And they've announced $1.7 billion of extra funding for Medicare. So it's
they're
designed
gonna
to
call an election soon. Does that mean?
No, it's still waiting for that
Yeah.
interest rate drop, George. It's still
Okay.
waiting for that interest rate drop.
Yep.
But effectively, it's designed to go to the states and will help with hospitals primarily.
Right.
So
Well, I mean, all the funding to Medicare goes to the states. Like, where else do people live in Australia? That's kind of weird to be like, this all goes down to the states. Like, where the fuck else does it go?
like it's not it's not for your Medicare co-payment, for instance, right? Like, it's funding that will go directly. It'll go to the states, and then that will get filtered out to hospitals to run their operations or research or whatever they're doing. So that then takes Medicare to its record. Like, it's the most we've ever spent on Medicare. So this government, it's a 12% jump, and it brings it to 33.91 billion.
Right. But hang on.
Like, because of inflation, doesn't that number always go up over time? Like, I think it would be more useful to see, like, as a percentage of the total federal budget, how much does it make up a record high percentage of the total federal budget? Because, like, the numbers always increase year on year, every year, because money is worth less, because that's what inflation is.
George, just take the win, mate.
I'm happy. I will happily take more money for Medicare. I did notice, however, that none of the GPs I visit bulk bill anymore. If they could do something about that, that'd be cool. But like, I'll take some extra money for hospitals. Sure, great.
They did increase the Medicare co-payment.
Literally, the barest minimum of what I expect from a Labor government is to put additional money into health and education. That's kind of like table stakes for a Labor government. But sure, that's fine. We'll treat it as a victory, shall we?
Well, are we sure this isn't one of those if re-elected promises, right?
I don't think it is.
Like, an election has to happen like in the next 3 months.
Says Australians rely upon Medicare as the centre of our healthcare, and today I can announce we're delivering an additional $1.7 billion to properly fund public hospitals and health services next year.
Yeah, I think this is
so. It's only if they win,
unless the coalition get in and then change it. Like, they'll put the paperwork through, but the coalition could always not do that. They could always change it.
You're going to hear, Tom, you're going to hear a bunch of things.
This is a sneaky if re-elected
Tom
announcement. They haven't said that.
Everything you hear between now and election day is not going to happen unless they get
don't get re-elected.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So
anything that we're pumping $70 quadrillion, like, you're going to hear a lot of like, there's so much fucking money. We're just going to fuck money into the system. It's just going to come money all over the tits of the system. None of that happens if they don't get elected.
Right.
Okay, none of that happens. Okay, so everything that they say is like, and maybe it's costed, maybe not costed, funding promise, only if they get re-elected, right?
Well, this has been set up with an agreement with this. The thing with this, though, is that they've been negotiating with the states for months now. So I wonder whether, it's more likely to go ahead because the states will be banking on this money as well. So if the coalition get in and then turn around and go, nah, that's going to fucking...
You would expect you would
Be an
expect,
issue for Dutton.
you
It'll
would
rustle
expect
some
that
jimmies.
Dutton's going to have to sign off on this in some capacity, right? Like I don't see him arguing because it makes him look bad. So if the
100%.
Liberals sign on for it as well, then it's a done deal no matter who wins. But like I don't know. Maybe he would go to bat against it. I don't know. I like Dutton's an absolute fucking gremlin, so I wouldn't put it past him. But
Like, and this is the kind of thing that I was talking about. Like, we've got to improve, lives for Indigenous communities in the Northern Territories. So in this here, the Northern Territory will get the biggest share at 30%, almost double that of the ACT, which came in second at 16%.
yeah, but I mean, part of that is to do with like obviously the ACT is a much smaller place in terms of the number of people that are being serviced, but it's also like much smaller geographically, and so the cost of delivering services in the ACT would be substantially less than delivering services in the NT, where people are distributed over a much larger geographical area, right? Like
they're distributing funding equitably.
Well,
this is unheard of.
Presumably, I don't know, Tom. I haven't gotten into this. I've gotten my Doge on and dived into the spreadsheets and yelled at any career professionals yet, but I'm assuming that that's the case.
And what's crazy?
To Parliament House and demand to see the files.
Yeah, just start kicking the door down of the the Treasury office.
Or I will throw the biggest tantrum this building has ever seen.
I swear to God, I've got a toddler. I've seen up close what a fucking excellent tantrum looks like. I'm equipped for this job.
Of course, you wouldn't have heard about this announcement really because it's just been a fire hose of information about Trump and plane crashes and other random shit throughout the week, which...
Well, and if you made it through an hour worth of stuff to get to this, you won't have heard it from us either.
No.
But don't worry, Pauline Hanson.
Pauline.
The nation's favourite redheaded lady.
You know who my favourite politician is? It's Pauline Hanson from Pauline Hanson's One Nation.
She also announced a policy this week.
Would we call it a policy?
Yeah. Or did she? I think I don't know. Let's
I'll play the speech in its entirety.
Let's play the clip because I think the more
context. She called a press conference. She called a press conference saying she had a big announcement and everyone rocked up.
Yeah.
And then
this was it.
Happened.
Yeah. And it's a full 62 seconds long.
My colleague and I, Senator Malcolm Roberts, are pleased to announce our policy on behalf of One Nation for the people of Australia. This is about Australia's future. This is about putting money back into the pockets of Australians. It's about slashing government waste. And it's about tax reform and spending that the major political parties will never do. Thank you. Any questions? Right. No one has a question.
What are those policies?
Well, we have...
Great question.
No.
That's a great question.
We want to slash about approximately $90 billion from government waste and spending.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
In case you're wondering, none of that was edited by us. That is all like that air gap between 28 seconds and 56 seconds when she started talking again was purely, that's all organic. Like that's...
just forgetting or not writing down or I don't know, just not saying the bit in the middle that's the quote unquote policy and just going straight to the reminder to what they're doing.
And
any questions?
And what are those policies? That's a great question.
Yeah. I wonder who said that. Did Malcolm Roberts try to save it? Being like that excellent question. Thank you for asking. I was just thinking the other week, we hadn't heard from Pauline in a while. She didn't have some like hateful soapbox to jump on about something. Like I don't know, maybe she just has been being drowned out by all the other bullshit, but we didn't have a banger clip of Pauline fucking up. Being a miracle of a politician in that how is she still there, still doing stuff when she's this bad at her job.
$90 billion is so much money. Like it's so much, it would be so much money for the American budget, which is like,
That is like
$2 trillion a year.
Yeah.
It is
So
for the Australian budget.
Isn't that like
so much money.
45 Medicares from what we just discussed?
Yeah.
Like,
It's 3 Medicares, but yeah.
$90 billion. It's so, like, and that would have
you
gone,
might-
and that's why journalists, that's why you got to ask questions like, what are those policies? Because otherwise,
What
we
are
wouldn't
the
have gotten that
policies?
delicious detail of $90 billion.
Oh.
Also, Pauline Hanson controls none. To be clear, for any American listeners, Pauline Hanson used to run a fish and chip shop, and now she's a senator. She doesn't control any of the major levers of power in government. She's not like really a significant member of the crossbench. Like no one needs her opinion on anything in order to function. The ability for her to create $90 in spending cuts, much less $90 billion, is unproven, shall we say?
George,
probably-
she wants to see GP visits get made cheaper. This is your lady. This is like you just asked for it.
Don't get me wrong.
She's
I
gonna do
love
it.
Pauline Hanson's One Nation's Pauline Hanson, but this may not be her brightest shining moment. Let's put it that
well,
way.
how is
she-
cutting $90 billion out of the budget going to make Medicare cheaper?
She just
she's
saw
apparently going to
Elon
cut-
Musk cutting things and thought, that sounds pretty good.
Well, that's it. So basically, they under their proposal, they would abolish all agencies, departments, and programs related to climate change.
Oh,
and they would
good.
also remove the National Indigenous Australians Agency, as well as a few other little bits and pieces. So
and carry the one, and that's 90 billion. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
I don't
Great.
know how 90 billion they get to that figure. Anyway, so then at the end of that press conference, she was asked about the hate speech legislation, which is currently going through Parliament, and Trump's Gaza comments. And she goes, "I'm not here to discuss it," and then turned around and walked away.
Yeah, presumably because she was dying inside from the embarrassment
You
that
could
was that
see.
press conference.
It's funny. I was like, normally she's pretty confident, but you could see in that clip,
You can
she
actually
was
pinpoint the
anxious.
moment that her soul dies.
She was anxious as shit. It was interesting. Like
It did feel like she wasn't confident in what she was saying, didn't it?
Yeah, like she hadn't prepared it properly or something, and she normally
Adam,
she gets a bit of
how dare
gumble
you-
mouth anyway.
Adam, how dare you suggest that this policy wasn't properly considered?
What?
How dare you
Policy on the
suggest?
run. Let's
how
sing the
dare-
song. Let's go.
How dare you suggest that this hasn't been a deeply thought through policy exercise? That is a disgusting comment, Adam, and I resent
Malcolm
that.
Roberts, the living soul, I'm sure has done his research. I'm sure James Ashby,
Wait, James Ashby's still around?
Actually, he might not be. Actually, I actually haven't worked out James Ashby's latest movements. He used to be the obviously the
Chief of Staff.
chief of
right?
staff
On the
pretty much.
source, I thought you were about to say.
Well,
source.
yeah, was on the source in the States with the NRA, and didn't he punch out someone in Parliament once?
Yeah, there's a whole thing.
There
James
was-
Ashby has been
yeah.
a bit of news story out of
The
himself.
loosest cannon.
But obviously she's just completely brain faded and just forgot.
No, yeah,
to
he is
say
currently,
it's true.
according to his Wikipedia page, he is currently the chief of staff for Pauline Hanson, the leader of
Wow.
Pauline Hanson's One Nation political party, and the state leader of One Nation Queensland. So
Wait, he's the leader of the Pauline Hanson's One Nation?
party.
What?
He's currently the chief
But
of
it's,
staff for
but
Pauline
it's
Hanson.
Pauline
The
Hanson.
leader of Pauline Hanson one. This is the name. The leader of Pauline Hanson's One Nation political party. So he's the leader of the party.
Wow. Not Pauline Hanson of Pauline Hanson's One Nation
I
party.
guess not.
Pauline Hanson is not
Or
the
maybe
lead
she's got,
Pauline
like, you
Hanson
know,
of Pauline Hanson's
Like
One
emeritus
Nation.
status or whatever. She's like big picture, and he's like day to day running the
Well, James
the
is
shithead
the-
operations.
Yeah, he's the operations manager. Right?
I hesitate to say the braids because it's James Ashby that we're talking about.
So yeah, whether or not that policy went through the Parliamentary Budget Office, who knows? But that did give us that delicious clip. I love the fact that she
I'm gonna
doesn't
say it
open
didn't.
her mouth. She doesn't open her mouth when she talks. It's like she's got like lockjaw every time she speaks. And it's just everything's just a little bit of movement in the lip. It's I don't know, like
Yeah. I
her
just
elocution is horrible. I
Yeah.
can't even understand what she's saying half
You
the time.
got to be
I've-
upset
I've
if you're one of the
missed
journos. I feel bad for the journos that are on the Pauline Hanson beat. they're like sitting there just going, okay, my boss told me I have to follow you around. So you called a press conference. Like, what do you got?
Yep.
And she's like, bloody cost cutting. And they're like,
Cool.
Is that it? Cool. It's 10:30. I guess that's lunch. She goes, so you don't have any questions for me? And he's like, honestly, I just hate that I fucking have to be here. I'm here because I got a DUI, really. I was drunk on the job, and this is punishment that I'm here covering you. So
I'm here because maybe the press conference will be about blood smeared on a door.
Yeah,
and it'll be
I
interesting.
was kind of hoping for a blood smear on the door press conference, but this is nuts. This is the dumb kind of nuts that I'm not here for. So cool. Are we done? I'll see you at fucking tomorrow. Great.
Yeah. I think it's just nice to get a good Pauline clip after the week we've just had. Like, you know,
my mate's following Dutton around. He's saying all sorts of crazy shit that actually means something because he might be Prime Minister.
Yeah, we hadn't had a squat toilets incident in a while, so I think we all needed this. The world needed this.
If you're wondering what Tom is referring to there, Google Pauline Hanson squat toilets. And
iconic.
Yeah, just an iconic moment in Australian politics.
It's beautiful. Just beautiful. So thank you, Pauline. I never thought I'd say that, but thanks, Pauline. That was a breath of fresh air this week.
Yep, you heard it here first, folks. Tom Heath thanking Pauline Hanson. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at our handle at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and mother flipping Chinese state-run TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
And you can follow me down to the office of Pauline Hanson's One Nation, where I will be trying to do a thorough review of their policy and all their accounting, because I'm a special government employee appointed by...
According to you, and that's all that counts, apparently.
Exactly, yeah.
And don't worry, they will have a thorough policy document for you to review. $90 billion is a lot of money. So
how many pages do you reckon?
At least 2. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week. Multiple pages, definitely not generated by DeepSeek.
Times New Roman font.
Yeah, if you do the spacing 1.5, it makes it look bigger.
Ooh.